Hey, good afternoon. And I'm sure you've been waiting anxiously, like I have been waiting for my guest today. My guest on Conversations with IB is my friend and my brother, but no, he's not as nice as I am. His name is Chidi Odinkalu, and I'm sure if you're Nigerian or African or even in the human rights space, you have heard this name. Chidi is a human rights activist, he's a lawyer, he's a professor, he's a writer. He was former chairman of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission. And you would wonder, and I'm going to have him tell us how he ended up working for government, because that's not something you would have associated with him. Chidi is currently the senior team manager for the Africa program of the Open Society Justice Initiative. He's been with that organization since 2003. Chidi had worked with the Civil Liberties Organization. And yes, when you talk about the whole matter of fighting the military and access to democratic institutions and things like that, you would find this name would feature. Chidi was best graduating student at the School of Legal Studies in Imo State University. He's a husband of one wife as at today. I don't know if that will change tomorrow. He's got two amazing kids who I think he's too lucky to have. I mean, they're just simply adorable. Chidi's going to be talking with us today about accountability in governance and citizen participation. You know, very often we find it easy to talk about what government should be doing, what it isn't doing. Yet when we talk about good governance or democracy, there's considerable emphasis on the role of the citizens, transparency and accountability, and what demands we make, who we vote for, why we vote for them. Is it because of Indomie or rice or granite oil? Or is it because they're going to do something? Or is it because they belong to our tribe? Or is it because they're part of our profession? Or maybe they're our friends or family? Those are some of the conversations we're going to be dissecting today. Please don't forget that you can make all those comments and let's take Chidi on together, you and I. Chidi, you're welcome to Conversations with IB.
Thanks a lot, Ibim. Um, my grandfather told me that if a woman tells you that you're the father of her child, you should never say no, because it is a vote of confidence on your abilities and your integrity, and that because of that, no man should ever count the number of children he has until he dies.
All right. Okay. Chidi, we're not starting with controversy, are we? But, governance accountability, what does it mean? Accountability in governance, what is that?
Government is a fiction.
Oh, okay.
And it's the reality of it comes down to a tarmac that we all construct with amongst ourselves as citizens and with those who assert the prerogative to rule over us. And it's a negotiated enterprise. You only get as much, you don't get what you deserve in governance, you get what you negotiate. And I think part of our problem in Nigeria is that we've never really been able to negotiate that, because as citizens, the politicians and soldiers, that alliance of politicians and soldiers and business people who rule and ruin us, kind of have much closer coherence than citizens do. And they are able to keep citizens fighting against one another while they are carving up our country and pocketing for themselves, their families, and their mistresses in perpetuity. I think that's really what it's about. And accountability is really being able to bring those people down to a modicum of telling us uh, to a modicum of a bit of control from us. At the moment, we don't have that. And that is why a legislator who 2 years ago did not have a job can today come to your village and destroy everything in it and go free. That's why a governor or a senator or a commissioner is lawless, because they believe they are privileged and we are not. 3.5 years down the road, from the beginning of their mandate, they come back, give you a mess of pottage, and they want to go back again and keep doing the same thing. We allow them.
Okay, Chidi, honestly, governance is fiction. Government is fiction. Now you've started. I'm not even listening to that. We have to be organized as a people.
Who are
We're
we?
not human beings. Human beings have to be organized. Systems,
Yes.
organized systems. That's what government is about. It's about
Organized
organized
systems.
systems.
But you ask yourself, who destroys the systems in Nigeria? It's not the citizens. It's supposed to be the people in government. Who are the people who are responsible for making sure rules don't work for you and I? It's not you and I. Well, you understand what I mean. It is government. It is the people in government who don't allow. Okay, look at yesterday. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, right? A faction of APC had a meeting in the council chamber of all places in the presidential villa, and had the Attorney General of the Federation, not Attorney General of APC, swear in the factional chair of a factional convention of the APC. Now, that is constitutional sacrilege.
The man is a member of the APC and
He
he
did
is a
it as
lawyer.
Attorney General of the Federation. He
No,
cannot.
he did it as a member of the party.
I'm sorry, no. He did it as Attorney General of the Federation. Now, a party, I don't care who they are, APC, PDP, QED, cannot use the council chamber, because the council chamber is for matters of state, not matters of party. It's not an APC or PDP council chamber. If PDP does it, it is sacrilege. APC does it, it's sacrilege. KED does it, it is sacrilege. And that is what the president inflicted on us. Now, what happens? We all accept it because it's normal. It is not normal. The country is not for a political party, because political parties will come and go. There are some things you've got to hold beyond political party politics, and this is one of them. Malami is not Attorney General of APC. He can be a member of APC, but he's not Attorney General of APC.
So perhaps yesterday he was operating as Malami, a member of APC. What about that?
No, I am in the council chamber. No, if they had met outside
Maybe
the council chamber.
was wrong.
Now you see, if they had met outside the council chamber, you can be saying that, and I will agree. But they met inside the council chamber. When the Attorney General of the Federation is in the council chamber, he is Attorney General. He's not a member of APC.
I see. Okay. Okay, but Chidi, this brings me to a matter that, in fact, when we announced this program, people say to me, you're bringing in a member of the opposition party. By the way, I didn't know you belong to a political party. You never told me this.
That's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I don't belong to any political party. I have never belonged to any. I have never supported.
What do you have against belonging to one?
I don't have anything against belonging to one. I've just not got around to making the choice. Full stop. I have never supported PDP. I have never supported APC. It's nothing of the sort. But you know what? I will never give up my rights to say what I believe or think about what political leaders or rulers are doing to my country. That is not negotiable. If there's a price to pay, I'm willing to pay it. And if there are stupid people who think it's about... No, I'm sorry. If there are stupid people who think it's about opposition politics, that's their business. They've got a right to form those views, and I'm going to defend their rights to form those views, even if I think they're stupid.
Okay, but here's the thing. When people who ought to throw their hat in the ring, activists like yourself, stay away from politics, people say, well, activists are even the problem. When they get into politics, stop talking, because it's bad manners to talk while eating. And so how do we walk around this very dicey subject of being an activist, being a politician, sitting at the table with good manners?
Now, you see, in the United States, for instance, right? January 15th is marked as Martin Luther King Day, right? It's a bank holiday, it's a public holiday. Martin Luther King never held political office. He was not a politician, he was not a Democrat, he was not a Republican, he was never president or parliamentarian, nor prime minister, but he is revered by all citizens, black, white, brown, whatever, as having transcended any of that. In India, for instance, you have the Mahatma, right? Mohandas Gandhi, who transcends the politics of BJP and Congress and who is seen as a figure, a transcendental national figure, right? Now, it is only in Nigeria that we think that the only way to make a contribution or to attain leadership is through political office. By the way, leadership is not defined by office, not at all. There are different zones and streams of leadership. Political leadership, and I think we should respect political leadership for those who want to build their path and contribution there for right reasons, not for the transactional reasons that are predominant in Nigeria. But that is not the only thing. You've got economic policy leadership, you've got commercial and transactional leadership in business and enterprise and entrepreneurship. You've got theater, arts, and culture. You've got academia. You've got humanism. You've got activism. Now, we've got to get to the point in our development in Nigeria where people understand that leadership and transcendentalism can be attained in different fields of endeavor and not just in politics alone. You cannot have a country in which everybody is a politician and there are no other streams of leadership. It will not work. And that's part of our problem, that in Nigeria, the highest honor for the country is reserved for only people who have plotted coups or those who have rigged elections, right? That is how you end up with generals who have plotted coups and taken over government as GCFR, and those who have been in cahoots with them as GCFR. And then you've got Obasanjo and Buhari who have done it twice. Now, it doesn't make sense. And the only Nigerians who are GCFR who have not done that are Obafemi Awolowo, who was granted the highest honor in the country in 1981 by Shehu Shagari, with whom he served in Gowon's cabinet, right? And the other is Moshood Abiola, who got it long after he had died. That is just wrong. Now, I cannot, of course, speak about activists who have been in government or whatever. I think everybody has got to take personal responsibility. I'm an activist, very happily. I served my country as chair of the National Human Rights Commission. I came out of that nearly dead and very broke. Okay? So that is my own testimony. And anybody who wants to go and investigate, please feel free to go and investigate. So nobody should come and blackmail me about activism and nonsense. Anybody who is into transactional leadership should feel free. That is not part of my story.
Okay, so let's go back to this whole issue of good governance. Okay, you say government is fiction. I say we need systems. Government is about systems. So whatever you call it, fiction, a trap, whatever, how can we ensure a bit of sanity, some accountability in governance?
I don't think conceptually you and I disagree. I say government is a fiction. You say it's a system. A system is a fiction. A system is something you construct. And people construct together for purposes of creating a figment of reality and creating seamlessness in administration, in transaction, in civics, and that essentially is what it is. So I actually think you and I agree that government is invented, all right, and can be reinvented, it can be reimagined. It's down to the leadership and the partnership they construct with the followership. At the moment in Nigeria, and for quite a while, that partnership of leadership to followership has not existed, or if it did, to the extent that it did exist, it broke down. And I don't think at the moment that those who are mostly in power are interested in reconstructing it. And my own very limited experience of participating in, in statecraft in Nigeria is Nigerians are not asking for too much. Are people actually asking for very basic things? Nigerians are not asking for miracles. We are asking for effort. And if you put in genuine effort, Nigerians will be very kind to you. I mean, since I finished my tenure at the National Human Rights Commission, I've been the recipient of some of the most unimaginable acts of kindness. Going to Kano and taking an airport taxi, and the airport taxi driver in Kano tells me he will not take a dime from me. And I ask him, he needs the money more than I do. I'm offering him money. He's saying, no, he will not take a dime from me. And I'm asking him why he will not take a dime from me. And he's telling me about what I did when I was the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. I go to Calabar, the same thing happens to me. And the driver did not just give me free ride. For 3 days I was in Calabar. He went and gave me food. And took him to eat. And he would not allow me to pay. All right? I have been to restaurants. I have been to restaurants in Nigeria. I've been to restaurants in Nigeria, and this is in the last 2.5 years. I go to eat. I finish eating. I go to pay, and I'm told that person paid for you and said we should not tell you. Now, that makes me humble, all right? It tells you, people, and what did I do? I did not give any of these people money when I was chair of the National Human Rights Commission. I didn't do any magic. But Nigerians will be very kind to you if they believe that you have served with everything you can offer and you did not steal from them. That is my own testimony.
Okay, so I'm confused here. If Nigerians will be kind to you as long as you serve them, or at least you make an effort, why do people who sit in leadership not think about this as rewarding enough? I mean, is this perhaps just an experience you have? Can you even get into their minds and try to find out why is that not enough?
I wouldn't know. We could sit down here and theorize about it until the cows come home. Part of my own explanation, and I won't tell you I've not thought about this, is it comes down to the quality of our leadership recruitment. When you look at the first generation leaders that we had, and those who are genuinely leaders, whether or not you agreed with them, Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Dapa Berias, and I could go on. Michael Okpara. Most of them didn't make money. Tafawa Balewa did not build a house. Michael Okpara did not build a house before they died. It was Umuahia people who built a house for Michael Okpara when he was coming back from exile in 1979, for instance. As a matter of fact, Emeka Odumegwu did not exactly have a house. It's his father's house that he fought to live in, right? Nnamdi Azikiwe did not have much of a property. Obafemi Awolowo made his money as a lawyer and not as a politician. Now, those were public servants. And you can see that till date, they are the people Nigerians revere. Even when we don't agree with them, we know that they were not thieves. And they try to put in their best. By contrast, today, you elect me. I barely have gone to secondary school. You elect me as a councillor in the local government. In less than 2 years, I will have a massive duplex or a mansion. And I'll have properties in the state capital, and I'm looking to acquire one again in Lagos or in Abuja. Now, and because we have transactionalized the state, people no longer get value for it, and there is no connect, emotional or psychological or social, with the state. People are trying to cope away from the state rather than in connection with it. Everything is broken down. That, for me, is really what it's about. And you can see it in much of what the people in the state sector do. So that pride in service, in reverence from your people, in acceptance by your people for having done your best to make our shared spaces better is no longer there. And as a matter of fact, if you go into public service and you don't come out with acquisitions, you're called a stupid person. Now, I really can't understand.
So that brings me to what I think is.
I mean, I can't understand what we do with all these acquisitions, because in spite of all these acquisitions, our quality of life is denuded. Look at all of our Nigerian rich people in the isolation units today, no better than the poor people that they plundered. You know, and who are the people? You see, it's so unfortunate. You serve in the highest offices of the country as governor or senator or minister or chief of staff, and you die after so many years, and the people are telling you "nto" like Dinomile to Adams Oshomole. Now that is a terrible thing, because the people could also weep when Julius Nyerere, who had only one house, died. All of Tanzania stopped, quite literally. And on the day of Julius Nyerere's funeral, children were crying, mothers were crying, fathers were crying. If you go to Lusaka, yes? If you go to Lusaka, land at the airport and tell anybody to take you to Kenneth Kaunda's home, they will take you to KK's home very happily. And when you get there, you'll get water to drink. But you know the interesting thing? Kenneth Kaunda does not have a house. His house in Lusaka is built by the Zambian state, and it is the home of the first president. Those are people who know what leadership is about.
Okay, so how can we create? I mean, I always say on conversations with IBEE, okay, we've heard the problems. So let's begin to talk a bit of solutions. How can we ensure accountability in governance? What can we put in place to guarantee that? What can we do?
Why is that my problem?
Because you're Nigerian, because it's your country, because you have a stake, and because I'm sorry, you're also a leader in this country, in your own space.
No, so, yes. That's not my problem. I mean, yes, I've spent my lifetime in activism trying precisely to do that. But you know the point. When you have filled the highest offices of state with people who are not fit for purpose, all efforts at accountability come close to naught. Because the people who should guarantee the inviolability of accountability institutions are the people who make it impossible for accountability to work. So, look, last month, let me give you an example. Last month, okay, in October 2019, the chief judge of the Abuja High Court got approval from the National Judicial Council to hire 15 judges. Now, before you hire judges, the practice is that you must provide appropriations cover, cash cover for everything they will need, courthouses, their cars, their allowances, and everything. He got approval for 15 judges. Then, by the end of April, he announced that he had hired, on the basis of approval for 15 judges, he had hired 33 judges. He had recommended for the president to approve 33 judges when he got approval for 15. So I look at this list.
Maybe there's more approval that we didn't see. We don't know Thank that. You.
I look at this list. It is the judge, it is the sons and daughters and mistresses and all of that of mostly sitting judges and their sons-in-law and daughters-in-law. And I'm like, so I go around asking all these senior lawyers, guys, what about this? What are we going to do about this? All of them knew, none of them wanted to take responsibility. So it was myself and one other young lawyer who went public with this thing. And you have never seen the amount of support. Senior judges up to Supreme Court were calling me from the back saying thank you. senior Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, attorneys general, the High Court judges. And I'm like, what kind of cowardice is this? Do you people care? Okay, so because you want my career to be destroyed, you are protecting yourself and your children, right? That's the problem. So you're asking me for recommendations.
Chidi, brings me to the conversation having today. Citizen participation. What's going to happen? How can citizens, or really, how can citizens take responsibility? Like I said to everybody, in what? We're no longer looking at those sitting because they're sitting there. What's the responsibility of the citizen? How can we begin to activate citizen participation in governance? How can we activate?
Look, it's very costly. That's the fact. It's exceptionally costly, and it takes people who can. It's costly in terms of personal convenience. It's costly in terms of money. It's costly in terms of everything you can think of. Okay, I mean, I have been exiled 3 times in my life. I have, as chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, I was detained and arrested and detained. I am, in the past year, I have been arrested twice, detained twice. I'm on bail as we speak, right? The governor of Kaduna State wants to send me to jail. The former governor of Rivers State wants to bankrupt me. At the moment, I retain lawyers in 6 different cities in Nigeria. I'm in court in 4 different states, and that is apart from the Court of Appeal. All of that is bloody expensive. All right? How many Nigerians can afford that? Part of the reason I am not yet bankrupt is because I don't have anything. I don't have property. I don't have a car. I don't have a bicycle. The only things I have in my life are books. So if you want to bankrupt me, it's your problem. I don't even have a bank account. Right? If I need money, I go and ask somebody to give me money. I don't have a bloody bank account. Now, that is the point.
Well, all of us can't possibly have access, Chidi. All of us can't have access to people who will give us money.
But that is my life. If you want, you call it begging. If you want to beg, please do. Now, the point I am making is, we forget the expensive side to this. So people make very hard-headed calculations. How many people are prepared to go the distance to pay the price it takes? And I saw this close up with Gani. Gani paid a huge price, but Gani was prepared to pay the price because he built up the economic capacity to withstand the shocks and the attacks he was going to get. Now, you either do that or you make a choice to live a very ascetic life and forgo a lot of the things. But active citizenship is contact sport. And look, I stopped counting the death threats I get in Nigeria when I reached 2,500 between February and March last year, around the elections, right? Now, most people will, I mean, in between November and December, I managed to get about Twitter to shut down about 8 accounts that primarily existed for transmitting death threats at me, just in 1 month. Now, those are costs you've got to calculate. How many people want their wives to be threatened and their children to be run out of town? Those are problems. It is bloody expensive. I can tell you from my own personal experience. I've been lucky that,
So
yes. Yes.
So we throw up our arms in the air.
That's not what I'm saying.
Our arms in the air.
That's not what I'm saying. No.
So what are we going to do? Because
I'm giving you the benefits of my own experience.
The solid economic base we need.
I'm giving you the benefits of my own experience.
We can't all build up.
Now, the fact of the matter is, when I show up amongst my siblings, and all they tell me is, oh, this former governor of Rivers State wants to kill you. We don't want you to die. Please, leave this case. Go away. Okay? There are states in Nigeria I cannot go to. Now, these are the facts of the reality of taking a stand as an active citizen. And the question I throw back at you is, what manner of support do we give to the people who want to stand up as active citizens? As you well know, as you and I are speaking here, our mutual friend Ayakwe Srimovu is in a fridge in River State, dead. One of my lawyers in Owerri, Wisdom Dureke, was burnt in a fire, dead. As we speak, Ayodele Akele died last week. Every one of them died at under 60. Oronto Douglas died at 49. What's his name? Bamidele Aturu died at 49. You want me to continue? Ken Wiwa died at 49. The mortality rate for activists in Nigeria is very high. The cost is steep. And we forget that. And I'm not even counting a few others that we don't know about.
Where does that leave us, Chidi?
That leaves us at contemplating what kinds of support structures we need to look at, to contemplate for mutual support in the enterprise of making sure that our politicians and rulers are effective at what we set them up for. And you can't do that if people don't understand the costs of being involved in doing that. As I told you, I'm renting lawyers in at least 5 states as we speak. They've got to be paid for.
There are those who are going to look at us and look at what you've said and say, you know what? These activists, these NGO people, they're blackmailers. That's all they do. Blackmail hardworking people in government who see, I mean, if they're so good and if they really care, why don't they throw their hat in the ring and run? So these people who selflessly,
these
people who selflessly offer to run elections.
Yeah.
And then you guys don't offer to run, and people spend their money, spend their time, traverse the country, talk to people, they come in to run, they try to do the best that they can. They don't sleep because they're worrying about our problems, the problems of us Nigerians. And some activists who hasn't gone through all of this stress just wants to beat down on them.
I thought we had been through this before. Look, I have a heck of a lot of respect for anyone who, for the right reasons, and I always insist on that qualifier, for the right reasons, who, for the right reasons, offers themselves for positions of elective leadership. It's not easy. But the reality is that most of our people don't want to go into public service for the right reasons.
How do we support the few who do? How do we support the few who do? The few who truly want to serve.
And the few who truly want to serve, we should support them with our resources, with our time, with money, with our networks, with doorstepping. Absolutely, yes. That for me is not negotiable. But those are not the people who we have problems with, because most of them will not get into decent office in APC or PDP. No. The people whom we have to worry about are the never-do-wells who nevertheless get to control party structures in the leading parties and determine what happens. I mean, one of them, a former general secretary of APC, told me, he said, Chidi, there is only one thing worse than the building industry and its political parties. That is where you see maggots and dregs. These are his words. Okay? Now, how do we get the maggots and dregs? How do we keep them from controlling the parties? I think that is the question we've got to ask and answer. Anybody, look, in the last cycle of elections, a friend wanted to run for office in a state in the southeast, and I, went with him to go and talk with one of the governors who controls the system or who is close to the system. And he was told, look, if you want to start, and this is not the party I'm talking about here, is not APC or PDP. And my friend was told, look, if just to show that you're interested to start shaking body, you need to put down at least 150 million naira. And this was before he indicated interest in the party ticket. to get into the primaries. It was nothing to suggest that he was going to win, just to show he was 150 million naira. Now, how many self-respecting professionals would have 150 million naira to burn on an enterprise that yields absolutely nothing?
So, Chidi, that brings me that, this is the crux of the matter. This is why we're having this conversation. How do we create that critical mass of people who truly want to engender change in this country? How do we do that rather than all of us sitting in various corners, belly aching? How do we create that team of people who are forthright, who care, who have passion, and who want to do it? How do we get those people engaged in this business of politics?
If I knew, I'd probably be a very pricey political consultant. I don't know. What I do know is this. The cost of entry, okay? The cost of entry into the political business has been made prohibitive for those people you're talking about.
Can we bring this down? Is there something we can do to bring it down?
Precisely, now I don't know what we can do to bring it down, but I know that unless we crash the cost of entry, we are not going to get anywhere. So at the moment, the business model for crashing the cost of entry is called Godfather. So you look at Borno State, okay? Governor Zulum, who looks like he'd really like to achieve something, could never have afforded the price of entry into the political game. So what happened? He was adopted by Governor Shetima, who used his office to equalize the balance and get him through the threshold. Now, that may well be, because if you looked at the last cycle in 2019, Borno State had the highest number of aspirants for the position of governor in a state where you would think no sane person would want to be the governor, right? Now, so Governor Shetima did that, and now Borno State is where it is. And it's got, I suspect, one of the governors who kind of commands attention from the class of 2019. Now, you look at AIBEE State, which is at the other end of that business model, right? Odinkalu used his position to get his chief of staff, Theodore Orji, to become governor from prison. My former boss, Olisa Bakaba, was enlisted actually to be the lawyer for that prisoner at the time that they were trying to get him into office, and Olisa eventually gave up on the brief because he did not like the taste of it. Now, but this is the point. So what happened? Odinkalu created a bandit cabal in AIBEE State that has destroyed the state comprehensively. AIBEE State is going to need more than several lifetimes to get back to a modicum of civility before it makes progress because of the criminality of Odinkalu and Theodore Orji and what they set off.
Don't name people criminals on this show, Chidi.
I am going to say it, and if you don't like it, please shut me down. All of us are old enough to die. It is our country too. And these people are destroying our country. And if we cannot say they are destroying our country, then something is wrong with you. As I told you, a former governor of Rivers State wants to bankrupt me. I am happy to be bankrupted, but nobody is going to shut me up from saying what I want to say about my country. If you don't like what I want to say, shut me down, I go.
No, you can talk about your country. We just don't want you calling people names.
If you don't want me to say what I want to say, shut me down. I am happy to go. Odinkalu and Theodore Orji are criminals. I will say it here. And that business model has destroyed an entire people. And if we are afraid of the law of libel and slander, and because of it, we don't want to say what matters. I grew up in AIBEE State. I grew up in Aba. Okay? This is about my life and the lives of our children. Now, if you know Aba, you will know that there are parts of Aba you cannot get to, which were 20 years ago upmarket neighborhoods. People who built in those places can no longer call in value in those places. Contrast it with Raji Fashola in Lagos. When Raji Fashola became governor of Lagos State, so I'm not here to talk about just negativity. When Raji Fashola became governor in Lagos, okay, If you lived in, say, Lawanson, or you lived in Lekki, the value of the property you had doubled in less than 2 years of Raji Fashola's tenure, which meant that you could leverage a lot more resources if you wanted to go into entrepreneurship. By the time Raji Fashola had finished his 8 years in Lagos, the value of property all over Lagos had more than tripled. What he did in Lagos, and that is why till tomorrow I will cut Raji Fashola a lot of slack, because he made an effort. He absolutely made an effort. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to, you can take a critical view of what he did, but you cannot say the man did not try. So this is my point. And of course, he was the product of another godfather. So that business model, that model of political business in Nigeria has had mixed returns in different places. How do we enable it to produce consistently good return? I don't have an answer
to. Okay, just as I was waiting to hear you give me some hope, you crash it. Really, Chidi. I'm just waiting for you to give me, because I'm here listening and I'm saying, okay, finally we're finding a way out. Then you're telling me, how can we get it to consistently give us good results? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, look at Edo State and what's happening there now, right? I mean, the first time I met Governor Obaseki was about 18 months before the elections in Edo State in 2015. And he was introduced to me at the Hilton as the next governor of Edo State. And the confidence levels of the people who introduced him to me were final. They were not negotiated. It was not like maybe. It was like this.
They were having, listen, come on, they were having faith. They were having faith.
Well, maybe it was I'm sure they had faith, but we were not in a church service, right? Now, so, and it has come to pass. And what's happened? In less than 4 years, that transaction has ended up where? At nothing. And this is what, part of my respect, this is genuine respect. It's not just because we were classmates at the law school. Part of my respect for Raji Fashola is he was properly brought up. Now, is it that his godfather did not give him reason to quarrel with him, or to give up on him, or to publicly diss him? But you would never hear Raji Fashola say an unkind word publicly against his political benefactor. Never. And it is that capacity to do right while trying to mitigate wrong that we have not found consistently in Nigeria. And sometimes, as I discovered in my own limited sojourn in public life, the best you can do in public life is not necessarily to advance right as much as it is to prevent wrong from happening.
Right. Wow. That's deep. The best thing you can do in public service may not necessarily be to advance right sometimes, but to prevent wrong. Let's see how much we can reduce the wrong. Someone says good people have to come together and fight for this country. When he says that, I come with the response that Jesus gave the young teacher, who is good. Who is good? Good is such a relative term. And sometimes I wonder if we have a right to call one good and the other bad. But I'm listening to you, and so I see we're in a quandary of what do we do about political systems? What do we do about strengthening those systems that even want to work? What do we do about letting people who really do want to do good leverage on goodwill of the majority? Is there something we can do, Chidi? Is there a way around this? Is there a way we can help? Because there are people who truly want to do good in public office and who really need some help around their capacity. What can we do? What can we do to ensure that this is possible?
Well, first of all, it seems to me we've got to try and find a country. We can take the existence of Nigeria for granted and think there is a country. The fact of the matter, I don't think Buhari is a Nigerian. I think Buhari is a northerner. And I think Buhari sees himself as a northerner. And that is the way he has run the country. He has not tried to create or to reflect a Nigeria. You and I left secondary school in 1983. We were along one corridor. You were at one end in FGGC Abuloma. I was in the middle in FGC Okigwe. We had people at the other end in FGC Enugu. And, at the time that we left secondary school, we had kids whose parents every year put deposited at a train terminal in Meduguri or Kaduna. They were picked up in Enugu, and their parents trusted the kids to get to school in another end of Nigeria. And from another end of Nigeria, parents deposited their kids at the train terminal in Ido or Enugu and trusted that their kids were going to get to Kaduna or Meduguri or Azare or Sokoto or Potiskum, right? Today, a parent in Jos cannot trust that their child can get to school in Bukuru, also in Jos. Is in the north, Bukuru is in the south. A parent in Jos cannot trust that their child will get to school in Bokos, also in Plateau State. So you're not even talking, and a parent in Malali, in Kaduna, cannot trust that their child can get to school in Banawa, which is also, so Malali is in Kaduna North Local Government Area, Banawa is in Kaduna South Local Government Area, both in Kaduna, not just Kaduna State, but Kaduna City, right? Now, why am I saying this? The notion of good in Nigeria is broken down, and there is an ethnocentricization of goodness. You are from Opobo, so your sense of goodness is limited to Opobo. And maybe if you are very generous, Eastern Ijo land. The Western Ijo are not good enough. I am from Ihiala, so my sense of goodness is limited to Anambra Central and Anambra North. And we don't see goodness in people across the bridge in Delta State, not to talk about Yoruba land, or your state, or Ondo State. And if we are from southern Nigeria, if I'm from Enugu State, there is no goodness beyond Obolafo. So people in Benue State are not good enough. And if I'm from Benue State, people in Kaduna are not, they don't produce any good people. Nor do Borno people, nor Sokoto people produce good people. Now, because you have ethnocentricized goodness, and it is the same reason why a president of Nigeria can appoint 10 cabinet members, all senior cabinet members from northwestern Nigeria, from which he comes, right? And give all of them.
I'm sorry, Chidi. I'm sorry, Chidi, but at this point, people are going to say the pendulum swings both ways.
Yes, go on. I'm listening.
They're going to say the pendulum swings both ways.
Please go on. I'm
So
listening.
if we're talking about our Nigerianness, isn't that a problem of everybody? But, I mean, is that a problem of one man?
What did I say? I said, did I accuse any particular person, any particular ethnicity of? In exemplifying it, I have said every part of Nigeria does it, which does not mean, right, because at any point in time there can only be one president, and it is more deleterious when the president does it. I'm sorry. It is much more deleterious when the president does it, because it sets the wrong tone. And it is not just that. You see, when you appoint...
As the anchor, I cannot air my opinion on this, but go ahead.
I'm sure you don't have an opinion on this, and I don't know that you should have one. Now, okay, when a president ethnocentricizes goodness and appoints... I mean, look, pretty much all of the National Defense and Security Council is from one political zone in Nigeria. You know what that means? Even when they meet and take decisions that appear sensible, the people who are not in the room will not believe they are being sensible, no matter how much they bend over backwards, because they are credited from the threshold with ill will. And this is why...
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. A very important question. The issue of mindset. You said something, and I agree with you. The people who are not in the room will not believe. This is the same country where Ojuku's mother was granted safe access
Correct.
in spite of the fact that there was a war. She trusted somebody who was not an Onitshaman when he said, you know what, we're going to make sure you get home safe. Mindset.
Hassan
We
Katsina.
went to federal government colleges, you and I. And I thought that was what was at the heart of the matter. Creating a generation of Nigerians who thought, how do we address this mindset problem?
How do we address it? I don't know. My own attitude to it is, you've just told a story about how Hassan Katsina granted Ojuku's mom safe access, safe passage from Kano down to Newi during the war, or to Enugu during the war, at the beginning of that crisis, right? Now,
yes.
I could tell a lot of stories. Miriam Babangida was saved by Garuba Duba's family. Miriam Babangida, her sister, during that same crisis, right? Go on. The sad thing about Nigerian civil war is that it was a duel between two young men who didn't like one another. This thing wasn't about the country. Gowon and Ojukwu never got along for personal reasons that we can x-ray outside this. But interestingly, Gowon and Ojukwu had children from different ends of the country at about the same time. Ojukwu was leading Biafra, but had slept with a Fulani woman and had a child from a Fulani woman in Kano when he was brigade commander. Gowon was leading Nigeria, but had slept with an Igbo woman and had a son with her, Edith Kokongu. Right? Now, if they had told Nigerians that they were fighting wars but liked to sleep with women from the other side, we may have a totally different country. Okay? Now, Gowon should have declared that he was sleeping with an Igbo woman, and Ojukwu should have declared that he was sleeping with a Fulani woman. If they had done this, we would not have been at war. But they were having their side runs and allowing us to kill one another. That's why I'm not very, when I discuss the Nigerian civil war, I'm not very kind to them. Because they led the country astray and let off a virus that we have never been able to control since then. Why do I say this? Part of what we have got to do is address our attitudes to history. We don't want to tell the truth about our histories. And when you start raising history in any public medium, you get attacked no matter how credible your sources are, because people are afraid of historical truth. You cannot build a country, and particularly a country of credible leaders, without credible attention to your histories. And part of our crisis is that when we sit down today to talk about Nigeria, everything is new. There are things I tell my kids and they're asking me, Dad, you've come again. You like to tell us these stories. Are you sure they happen? And I really make an effort to keep records or find records of these things when I speak with my kids. But we don't take our history seriously.
Wow. Okay, so somebody said all this analysis, all this, and she says it's a lot of honest, frank conversation. But Onyinye is worried. She's still worried about solutions, because we're getting to the close of this, to the wrap up. And I'm going to say to you, just from your perspective, and I'm sure you've thought about this a lot, and I'm going to say to you, how do you figure out, what do we do? What do we do? Are there a few things we can even begin to walk around? Because, we can't continue downhill. We've got to start pushing this thing back up. What do we do? What can each of us do in our little space, in our sphere of influence, to change this narrative?
I don't know.
We've got to try, Chidi. We've got to try.
I'm not a rocket scientist, but I firmly believe one thing. Nobody is going to legislate or dictate an answer to our Nigerian problems. The best we can do is create a confident generation of young people who are going to pose awkward questions that your generation and mine, since both of us were born in the same week, we will not have ancestry.
I am still older than.
That's why I call you Nda Ibim. Okay. Hello. Are you there?
And you though, boy.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Now,
thank God for our network. It went off for a bit.
My view is the most important thing is investment in young people, confident, capable, articulate young people, and giving them the confidence to know they can make mistakes, but we'll be there for them. And equipping them for a transition that has got to happen. Yes? Now, if we do that, I don't think we should worry too much. You see, the problem we've got in Nigeria, a governor in Kaduna makes a claim about killings, and I say, no, he's wrong. He wants to shut me up and he wants to put me in jail. Right? Now, that is stupid, frankly. It is very silly because he's making me look more important than I am entitled to be.
Yeah.
Now, also, everybody wants to do this pepper them government idea. Pepper them government cannot work. Allow people to go forth and make mistakes and challenge you. And in that competition of friction, we will make progress. No country ever makes progress on a smooth ride. You crash. Friction guarantees. So this thing is, as in motor racing, this is a contest between aerodynamics and mechanics. Speed and directionality and control directionality. Now, we've got to create a country in which there's a compromise between aerodynamics and mechanics. That comes from having young people who can go forth and elders who are happy to be criticized and to be told you're wrong.
Wow. Whew, guys, I warned you. I warned you when I said we have trouble in the house today. And this has been a roller coaster. I am out of breath. But you know what? It's been an interesting conversation. We're dealing with our reality as Nigerians, as people who truly want our country to function. And if there's anything we've learned, is the fact that all of us must be amenable for debate. We must be willing to contest for space. We must be willing to allow ideas compete. That's the point of conversations with AIBEE. We're providing a marketplace. We're allowing people contest for that space. Conversations with AIBEE opens up the space because we believe that as we debate, as we conflict even, we will find solutions to having a country that works. It's been another exciting evening with you, and I've enjoyed myself tremendously. I hope you have. I'm going to thank Chidi for being on this show. Thank you very much. It was an awesome evening, and we must do something to make our country work. All of us. Everybody must do a bit. In our little sphere of influence, we must do our little bit. I'm going to thank you all, and I'm going to see you again next week, Friday, when we have another conversation with another interesting person. See you on Friday. 4 p.m. is the time. Spread the word.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend.